I'm Dean Newland, and welcome to the Business of Intuition, where I coach, facilitate, train, and speak on the hard science and meaningful experience of intuitive leadership in business, so you can make better decisions, forge real connections, and creatively solve problems to amplify your impact and simplify your life. Welcome to the Business of Intuition. Today, we delve into the depths of the human psyche to uncover the keys to unlocking our fullest potential. We're also going to peel back the layers of our collective consciousness to explore the profound impact of unconscious traumas nestled deep within us since childhood. COVID-19 may have been the earthquake that revealed the fault lines in our society, but it also unearthed a powerful truth. Our intuition is the ultimate tool for navigating the rubble and rebuilding stronger than ever before. In my conversation with Claire Uncapher, we uncover how embracing intuitive leadership isn't just a buzzword, but that can also help unlock unprecedented levels of engagement, productivity, and innovation in today's ever-changing world. Claire is a dynamic and empowering speaker and coach who brings a unique blend of expertise with her background in clinical nursing, energy therapy, and life and transformational coaching. She is dedicated to helping individuals break free from past traumas, self-limiting beliefs, and long-standing issues with her holistic approach to depression and anxiety. Through her own inspiring personal struggle and journey through depression and anxiety, Claire has witnessed firsthand the potential for real and lasting change. She leverages over a decade of experience in the industry with her holistic and intuitive approach, incorporating techniques such as root cause and subconscious work, emotional release, and conversational energy work, guiding clients towards understanding and overcoming their inner obstacles and unlocking the best versions of themselves. Claire Uncapher on the Business of Intuition. Just this week, I noticed from, I believe it was the Wall Street Journal, an article that was sharing some statistics from Gallup, and they said that overall the U.S. labor force is at the lowest engagement levels it's seen, I think, since 2000. It's maybe close to that. And obviously something's going on, engagement levels being as low as they are. I get it. It's a kind of a weird sort of time post-COVID, election year when we had this conversation. But Claire, you've actually had a lot of background in healthcare, and you've seen firsthand people at their really worst, when maybe life and death is on the run. And I guess my question is, what's your sense right now about the overall world, the workforce, the people you're dealing with? Are we more depressed than we have been in the past? I mean, if you were to sort of guess, are we feeling happy right now? Or are we feeling sad? I mean, what's going on here? And what is the reason for it?
Yeah, I would say it is more common, and we've also kind of normalized it. And I hate to say, I was in nursing administration around COVID time, and I hate to blame everything on COVID, but what I noticed as an administrator is COVID happened. It kind of shook us all. It shook the work industry. And then when things opened up, we just all came back to work. Like, not everyone actually, but it was just like work as usual. But there was no debriefing. There was no I think we kind of clamored and got together some resources. But in healthcare, if there's an incident that happens, there's a formal debriefing after the incident. There's a procedure, there's a policy, and it's like, what's going to happen step by step through this to dissipate the energy and then learn from it. Like, hey, this bad thing happened. Are you okay? Are you okay? And can we learn from it? How can we do better? How can this never happen again? And then we integrate that, and then we move on. But there was no sense of debriefing or integration or are you okay? Are you okay? It was just like, hey, let's go back to work. And so I almost feel like intuitively, it's like almost like this shell shocked.
Huh.
and and things didn't ever go back to normal, and I was talking to my husband. I said, wow, there really is pre-COVID and post-COVID normal. But I think what I started to notice is people started talking about their depression and their anxiety like over cocktail hour. Like we've normalized this state instead of going, oh my God, are you
Mm,
okay? What's wrong with
mm.
you? Can I help you?
It's almost like when someone says, "How are you?" and you would say, "Well, I'm busy." It's almost like a common thing to like, "How are you?" Like, "Well, I'm stressed out." And it's like,
Mhm.
"Oh yeah, so am I. Everybody else
Yeah.
is." So welcome to the club,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah, I just talked to a guy before we got onto this conversation. I said, "How are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, I'm burning the candle at both ends, and I don't see any end in sight."
Right.
So our whole conversation was, how does he get through this over the next 3 weeks or 3 months? It is so normal, and it's almost a badge of honor, to say, okay, I'm working my tail off, and yet I'm paying the price for it.
Yeah, and I'll share that I had a little mental health blip in COVID. It was extremely stressful. I had 41 direct reports,
Mm,
and people's livelihood was on the line, and so they would come to me, and it also kind of got like negative. I went to my director, my person above me, and I said, I think something's wrong with me. I said,
mm,
my compassion level is decreasing. And I said, and I know how I'm supposed to feel in this position with 41 direct reports, and I don't feel the compassion and I don't want to help people right now. And I know that that's unacceptable in my position
mm.
and I don't know what to do about it. And I think, like, looking back on it, what she said was not helpful. She said, you don't think there's days I want to quit? And I said,
Oh,
well, I didn't say anything about quitting. I said, I've recognized that my compassion level has decreased and that that's not acceptable for my role. What do I do?
right, right.
you know,
And she couldn't help you.
she couldn't help me. And I think if she had really just said, let's talk about this. What do you think it is? What do you think you need? Do you need to take a day off or 2 days off or a week off? What do you need?
Yeah,
Um, how can we support you? Like setting me up with the resources that the company had that they had in place, but there's still that stigma. There's still that stigma.
yeah. It sure is,
So
and certainly in healthcare. I mean, we have a lot of clients in healthcare. We love the industry to pieces, and there's some of the worst individuals around self care. It's
yeah.
ironic beyond words. Like we're here to help others with their care, and yet we are also the worst offenders of the very thing we're trying to help others do. See it
Yeah.
all the time. You just kind of pointed that out. I wonder if, like, one of the things I observed with COVID was that COVID is there, terrible as it was a way to uncover what was already there.
Yeah.
And I don't know enough of us really took time to say, yes, this is awful. I'm sequestered at home, whatever the case may be. I'm fearful. But what was already there before COVID that this world event helped uncover? And because I don't think as a collective society did we see it that way, the phrases I kept hearing from people was, I can't wait to get back to what it was like in 2019. Like,
Hmm.
let's go back to normal because this is not normal. So let's go back to where it was before. And hence we missed the whole opportunity. To your point around sort of the after action review, the post-mortem, that is very familiar phrases in healthcare to say, hey, we had this awful event. Let's talk about it. Let's unpack it and let's see how we can support each other through it. Oh, and let's make sure that we learn something from it so that we don't do it again in the future. We didn't do that as a society. And here we
Hmm.
are, you know, feeling pretty stressed out. So so it sounds like you agree that this mental health state of the United States and certainly probably other parts of the world doesn't look so good right now.
No, and I think what normal is actually, which we don't really realize, is normal is bypassing. Normal is bypassing any uncomfortable truths or uncomfortable emotions. Normal is often living comfortably numb. And so when you become aware, like you said, some ugly truths probably surface for some people.
Right.
Like, I'm not happy in my job. I'm not happy in my marriage. I'm not happy in my life. Wow, life is short. Like, and they couldn't unknow those truths. But now what am I supposed to do with that? This is
Yeah.
highly inconvenient to know.
Right. And I do think there are people that did actually take the time and really did do a lot of navel gazing and
Yes.
went on long walks and figured out, oh my gosh, I now have my life purpose. Hey, I want to be an executive coach instead of a
Yeah.
nurse for a healthcare organization or whatever your pivot
Yeah.
is. So
Yeah.
some of us have done that work, others may not have. So what is I mean, in your practice as a coach and as a facilitator, what are some of the common things you're hearing and how are you helping people through it?
So my approach is really different, and I really feel surprised that it is so different. But I struggled with anxiety and depression for much of my adult life. I tried all the things. Was a successful, confident, smart woman, but I could not solve this problem. And I did all the things that I was supposed to do, and it wasn't getting better. So I went on this journey and I found subconscious work and root cause work. And the premise is that anxiety and depression and unhappiness and stress, those aren't the problem. They're symptoms of the problem. And we really just need to be curious and brave enough to say, hey, what's really wrong here? What's really going on? And the tricky thing is I couldn't access that information all those years across from a therapist because it was hidden in my subconscious mind. Your brilliant subconscious mind that knows everything about you, very closely related to your intuition. You kind of already know there's going to be no big surprises. We consult that and it's so beautiful. And so that's the approach is anxiety is not bad. Anxiety has a message. It's trying to tell you something. Let's decipher it. Let's look at it.
Absolutely. So, how do you then help a client get to the subconscious root cause? I understand what you're saying 100%. And there's research and studies that would say that we've got a conscious mind of what we are
Mhm.
aware of, and we have a subconscious mind that kind of runs the show. And subconscious is much bigger and stronger than our conscious mind. We walk around thinking that we're walking around thinking we're driving this car and we're not. It's a self-driving car, by the way. So you're a
Right.
passenger. So how do we get there?
So we get there so there's lots of ways to get there. You can be hypnotized. That's the most popular way. I don't believe that you need to be hypnotized to be there. In fact, I know you don't because I take people there all the time and without hypnotizing them. And I just use certain language to ask the client's mind, directs the client's mind to take you to the time scene situation related to whatever you're curious about. And it really is, they just have to like be open enough to let them step aside and let their mind do the work. And it's like typing in what's my problem in the Google bar and hitting search. And the client will start to get flashes of memories. And then it kind of like starts landing and it comes in as pixels. And even people that are like really skeptical or resistant to it, if they stay with it, they go, well, this is weird. Just something came to mind. And then it always leads to gold. Everything during the process of this discovery is relevant. Every image that pops in your mind, every memory, every scene, every phrase, everything that comes up in your mind is relevant. And it's almost like a game of charades that your mind is trying to tell you this is what you're so upset about. And it's never what you think. Like, we go, oh, my trauma, my mom was horrible. It's something much. So for me, when I went through it the first time, I went back to a scene when I was very young and it came in as pieces and your logical mind will start coming in and you're like, did this really happen? How old was it? No, we're diving into a different world here and we analyze it afterwards. And I was aware of myself playing with a doll in the living room and I was very young. And my parents were having an argument in the next room, a nasty argument. And in this state, you're able to be aware of the thoughts of that version of you. And the thoughts that were going through my mind were, if I was good enough, they would be happy. It's my fault they're arguing, because if I was cute enough and I could, keep their attention, then they wouldn't argue with each other. And so this is my fault, and I'm not lovable. And so in that moment in time, it's like you freeze that moment. I was able to see that I formed a belief that I was not enough at my core. I was not good enough, and I never was going to be. And I thought I was, but nope, not. And then you go on you take the mind on a little journey to show many times that belief has been reinforced over your life. And then you get a chance to, I don't want to use the word reframe, because it's so much more than that. You heal it so that it is no longer a belief. And it's from the client's logical mind that they're able to see, well, wow, that little me made that conclusion, but I can see that was not the issue. The issue was my parents were unhappy, and I was
and it had nothing to do with you.
Nothing to do. I was sweet. I was innocent. I was playing with my damn doll,
Yeah.
But, and then once that's released, that's why it's almost magical, because once that's released, you don't believe it anymore. And every ripple effect of that belief in your life is no longer there. So you are different because you believe different. And then you start peeling back the layers.
So there's a lot of stuff here, Claire. I don't know where to start, because my mind is just spinning with thoughts as what you just said. So one thought is, I understand what you're saying, and there's a lot that I concur and believe. Let me just say one of the things that came to mind. One was, there is a certain school of thought that says the more you focus on something, the more you get. If you think about, Abraham Hicks, and you think about the law of attraction, you think about some of our societal norms. Why do we want to be focusing on the things that make us feel bad? It will just make us feel more bad. And so there is a school of thought that might believe that. So how is that true? Am I going too far into the extreme? Can we actually focus on things that are negative that really do attract more of the same thing? But at the same time, we heal the wounds of our childhood. I mean, can we have both? I mean, what's your perspective on what appears to be two opposing ideas about how we heal?
Right. So it's not about drudging up and reliving. It's about finally understanding why you feel the way you feel. And I love Brene Brown's quote. She said, people are so afraid of opening Pandora's box, because they don't want to open the box. And she says to them, were you under the impression you were ever living outside the box? So we've swept this stuff under the rug, literally. It's affecting us still. And all we're doing is exposing it exposing it to release it, not to relive it, not to rehash it, not to talk about it. We're exposing it to heal it and to release it so that it's just no longer finally part of your identity.
And the releasing happens how? If we see it, we understand it. Okay, let's use your example. I'm playing with my doll. I'm whatever age, 3, 4, 5 years old. Mom and dad are in the next room having a knockdown, drag out fight. I, at the time, had this decision that I must be the reason for that. I've held on to that, which was understandable because I was a kid, becomes part of my DNA. I live my life as an adult under that same idea of trying to prove my worth to other people. So I work hard at the expense of my own need to take care of myself because, of course, I'm not good enough. Get all of that stuff. How do we, if it's not reframing, which is to say, like, let's create another story about that situation. How do we release it?
So now you're asking, So I have a 10-step process that I take people through and I teach it to them so that they can replicate it on their own. And the releasing part, and I don't know if you can hang in there with this, Dave, the releasing part, it has a conversational energy work aspect to it where we release the energy of the belief from your body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's doing this, like, and this comes back from my days when I was an energy work practitioner.
Mm.
I would see things in people's bodies in my mind's eye. And then when I would help them exit out of their bodies, they would start to feel better. And so I incorporate that into my work. Oftentimes, I mean, I've never really gone here in an interview, so it's interesting. I'm like totally pulling back the curtain. But I know you just do that to me. I don't know. But I work with a lot of different kinds of people. I worked with corporate lawyers. I've worked with military. I've worked with police officers. The process, if we're talking about it at a cocktail party, might seem a little weird. But the question isn't, does it work or is it weird? The question is it helpful?
Right.
Did it help you? And my clients would say, yes, it was helpful.
So it sounds like, again, the 10-step process might require another conversation or two. But it sounds like, in a sense, if I could repeat what I think you're saying, is that it's about healing through releasing the energy that is stored, my words, not yours, around that particular subject, memory, subconscious encoding that might even have its coefficient somewhere in the body.
Yeah. And the thought is changed too. It's like there is a sense of, and that's where my world lives, is half clinical, half, energy work. And so there is neuroplasticity and rewiring the brain. And then there's this energetic component that I just couldn't ignore because it's so powerful and part of my process.
My mom, rest her soul, I just realized that she passed away about a year ago today. It's interesting, probably close, almost to the day. But when she was in her heyday as a therapist, she did a lot of body work, and she would do massage, but it would turn into a therapy session. So she would be working on somebody's shoulder or back. And because of the kind of safe space she was able to create with that person, sometimes feelings would start to emerge based on the place in the body by which she was massaging. And so the pain of mom or dad or kid or child that has died or whatever it was starts to get released upon that it's almost like a button gets pushed.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, do you find that as well, that your work, when it comes to the release of these energies, have a physical place that they have been stored, or or not? Am I being too literal from a physical standpoint?
I believe it is very literal. I believe these unprocessed stored emotions, like such as grief, anger, sadness, and I never know what we're going in for. I just ask the client, like, what do you want to work on? and the process is intuitive in and of itself, and it kind of like, we'll start on one thing, but then we end up releasing grief from your father's death 8 years ago from your body. And yes, it's in a certain place, and then afterwards the person feels lighter. They feel, oh, that I feel different. And I do work with physical symptoms like pain and things like that. And, when is it just pain? When is it just my bad back? And when is my bad back the anger that I'm holding from something? Well, if it, sometimes it's just a week back, and then we know that because I'll feel that. I'll feel like, no, this is not an emotional energy situation. You just need to strengthen your core or whatever. Go see your doctor.
Go do some sit-ups.
Yeah. And I'll sense that.
I want to ask you, what is this? Where did you get this? I'm writing words down like human design. That's a whole process around energy management. and release. There's also Reiki. I think about the Reiki process with respect to energy. What is, do you have labels for any of this stuff that those that might be listening could sort of parcel together how you do what you do?
Yes. So I call it the body speak method. And
this is your words. This is not something that, okay.
It's my process, but it's eclectic. I have taken it from root cause work, hypnosis, energy work, parts therapy. There's all these different aspects of things that I've studied. And then there's this intuitive part that's just something that felt natural to me and that I was like guided to do, that is kind of the way I work. And I understand like that way is not for everyone, and that's okay. Usually the people that are drawn to me, they are open to it.
And the interesting thing is that those that would say, I'm not drawn to this seems woo-woo to me, are those that we could say could get the most benefit. But of course, if the student's not ready, the teacher's not going to show up, right? We can't force this on anybody.
No, I mean, no, I was actually doing an interview and the camera guy was giving me a hard time. And he's like, you mean like my anxiety is trying to tell me something? And I said, yes. And we stopped and I took 10 minutes and we took him through 15 minutes, took him through the process. And it was all about like self-worth and not being good enough, and his dad always putting him down, and he revisited a specific scene with his father and we were able to work with that for a minute, and then he went, wow, oh, okay. And so that's cool. Like, whoa. And so I always want to say, like, let me just show you, because then you'll understand. And that's been my hardest part as a business owner, is being able to explain it to people in a way that you can understand, because it's so experiential.
I could get that. So I'm getting another insight into what you're saying. If we were to say that COVID revealed what was already there, but was well hidden, and that if anxiety and depression are not source but symptom, that's a big shift in people's thinking, because I believe that we have subscribed the way we feel to external forces. Well, I felt like crap during COVID, but COVID is what COVID is, right? We all went through it. So let's put the blame on COVID. Well, there's so many people right now are feeling depressed. Why is that? Well, because we're so disconnected. The technology and our phones are constantly creating these little micro bursts of attention that get moved to something else quickly, and we're no longer having real conversations with people. So it's TikTok, it's Facebook, it's, social media. Let's blame it on that. And there's even a book. I keep mentioning this in this podcast because I think it's so apropos. I think it's called Togetherness, by our current Surgeon General by the name of Vivek Murthy, when he basically says that we are in a situation whereby loneliness and depression is now an epidemic. It is now a physical concern, whereby most surgeon generals will take on something like cancer, obesity. He took on loneliness and depression. So then we point to these things and say, why is that, right? We always look to the outside for the reason for our errors and our issues versus the inside. What you're saying is your anxiety, your depression, you're feeling like shit today has its source, and it's not where you think it is.
Yeah. And it may not be your fault, but you're the only one that can do anything about it. And it is sobering.
Great point, though, because people are going to go like, I don't want to feel any worse than I have felt, knowing that the way I feel is my fault. So therefore, screw this. Let's just get back to working like a dog.
Well, yeah, it's not your fault. I mean, they might be like habits of thought, and I would say like to the epidemic, if we talk about the root cause, it's always like, what am I making that mean? Right. So often the trauma is our interpretation of an event, what we made it mean about us, more than the trauma itself. So whatever you're upset about, what did you make that mean about you? That I don't matter, that nobody's going to love me for me, that it's not okay or safe to be me, the me that is me. And wow, how crummy does that feel? I can't even be myself. I guess I'll just stay in my room all the time. You know, that I have to earn love, that I'll never be good enough no matter what I do, that I'm not lovable. People have 1 to 3 of these deep seated, wounded beliefs living in them. And once you and everybody like there it's there, and once you bring them to the surface, heal them, release them, it's amazing. It's freeing.
It's an amazing thing. Like, just to you to say that we all have 1 to 3 deep-seated childhood scars, hurts, whatever, that if you were to finish that thought, I'm sure you would say that is still with us today, and it's still holding us back in some way, shape, or form, keeping us from our highest and best.
Even if your parents were wonderful, if your parents were wonderful and you had an amazing upbringing, I am telling you, there is just only because I've done it so many times. I worked with a woman who had such low self-confidence, and there was no reason. Her parents didn't abuse her. They were nice to her. But if we're talking about the source, the scene, she went back to a scene when her mother had put her in a beautiful Sunday dress, and she was a kid. She went off and played, and she got it wrinkled. And her mother was so upset at her and, yelled at her, but didn't abuse her or anything. And the child, she just was like, I'm so horrible. If I was a good girl, then I would have just not wrinkled this dress, even though
Right.
I'm a kid and I just want to go play, and dresses get wrinkled when you play. And so, they're there.
Yeah. So let's go woo-woo to woo-woo.
Ooh, let's do it.
Can we say that some of these deep-seated hurts, call them what you will, the 1 to 3 happened in a prior life?
So I've done past life regressions. Can we say that?
Would you think that when you work with somebody and they get to source, is it always in this lifetime?
I have had people go in the womb. I've had people go right before this lifetime when they were getting ready to come in. That was interesting. I've never had anybody go to a past life, but I believe that if the way this works is if something is in your belief framework, it will most likely come in. But if it's not, it won't. So if you are a very spiritual person.
So if you don't have the belief for that possibility,
it wouldn't come in.
Get there.
Yeah. People that are very spiritual, sometimes a spiritual being comes in or something like that, or Jesus or an angel. But then people that are not, it's still a beautiful process, but that just it's not part of their experience.
So I heard a story from a friend who was helping out his wife with some back issues. And this person had a belief system that allowed for things to be apparent from prior lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
And the story that I heard was that when there was a certain pain point in the back, what triggered for the person was, oh, I can remember when I was stabbed through the body from that particular point of entry to the place that this soreness today still lives. So that was like, well, didn't expect that to happen. But to your point, that person who was describing this had a belief system that was even possible. So I guess what you're saying is, whether you believe it or not, you're sort of leaving open the possibility that there is past lives, and that we might be bringing forth some of these 1 to 3 different big issues into the current life.
Maybe. And as part of my journey in healing from depression and anxiety, I underwent multiple past life regression sessions. And thinking about it, there's value in it for sure. There's value in all the things I tried. But for me, it just didn't cut into the tumor,
way of putting it.
And past life regression work it's like the definition of root cause. So it should have, right? It should have like wrapped it up in a pretty bow, but it didn't for me. And so until I found this belief root cause work and emotional release.
I wish we had another 2 hours to talk about this, Claire, because what you're also seemingly saying, but not saying, is that there's everything that allows us to get to these tumors is influenced by the mind, meaning our current belief systems. Like if you have a belief system that says, yes, it's possible for us to have past lives and some of the stuff is being carried into the current life, and it's assume it's true, right? Then I could open myself up to that and release that, right? But if I have a belief system that I don't believe in that, it's not going to get to that quote unquote tumor because my mind, my belief system doesn't allow that.
Yeah.
So you're still working with a software program, AKA the mind, in order to guide you to root cause. But there may be some limitations there as well.
Well, the subconscious mind will always protect you. So if there is something in your subconscious mind that would be too much for you to know or wouldn't be helpful for you, or if we're doing a session with your mom standing next to you, different information will come up or it won't come up. It'll choose something else.
So why does the subconscious mind protect itself? I mean, like, it almost seems like in some ways the subconscious mind is friend and foe. So on one hand, it's friend because it's protecting us from trauma, from hurt, from whatever. By the other hand, it seems to be keeping us from being able to release this stuff. So tell me more about why does the subconscious mind become the gatekeeper, the barrier to us being able to recover from some of the stuff?
Because it cares about our safety, not about our happiness. That's the bottom line. It's all about safety. It's all about, I don't want to ever experience this unpleasant situation again. I know a great way that we can never experience this situation again. We'll just never try anything new. Or, you know what I mean? And I know I've got a great idea. I just won't ever, just it thinks it has this great idea to keep us safe, but it's not a great idea. It was a great idea in that moment.
But it's still operating on that decision that we have to keep you safe, even though this is 40 years old.
Right. It was a great solution for the 9-year-old. Good job. But it's wrecking my marriage in my 4-year-old.
Right. I'm an alcoholic because of it, or whatever the case may be. So it's almost like your process is a mental hack to unlock the subconscious, which, by the way, as I remember from my coaching training days, our subconscious is participating in and listening to this conversation as well.
Yes.
And we'll use it to its benefit to protect ourselves, to talk ourselves out of the stuff that you're saying we should do.
Exactly.
It's not dormant. It's here.
Whenever I book a session with a client, I let them know that, okay, your subconscious mind is going to go to work from now until our session. It's coming up with, and it also is going to try to convince you that you don't need to do this. You know plenty. And that's just fear. And there's nothing fearful that's going to come up. So you can just tell it, no, I'm tired of not knowing. I'm tired of stabbing, walking around in the dark. I'm tired of feeling the way I'm feeling. And I'm going to be taken care of through this process. So thanks a lot for your concern, but go sit in the corner.
So, all right, that's a great point about being able to call out the subconscious mind. Say more about how we can sort of identify when the subconscious mind, albeit trying to protect us, needs to go take a nap. I mean, is there something that the mind, the 10% is aware, can tell the subconscious mind, thank you very much. I love you so much. You've been great taking care of me. But right now, I need you to shut the F up.
Yeah, it's about becoming conscious and aware that you are in charge. Like Dean is in charge, not the subconscious mind or the reptilian mind, the second grader mind. And you recognize when it's in play because it's not reasonable, right? It's making you fearful, or it's holding you back, or it's telling you stories. And then you can just say, first, I always thank it. I'm like, thanks for looking out for me. Awesome job. But that's not what we're wanting to do. Like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I am like in starting my business, I had to face my own fears. Like, thanks for all the reminders of what could happen. Yes, we could end up destitute, homeless, and penniless, but
Yes.
I'm doing this. So chill.
Yeah. So your subconscious mind, basically, if it was making the business decision, you'd still be at that healthcare organization with 41 people feeling depressed and wondering why you don't have any empathy towards all these people.
Yeah.
All right. It's a great example of how you sort of overrid your subconscious tendencies. It's almost like to say, we can't necessarily use how we feel, AKA our subconscious mind, whatever it's doing, as the true north of what we should be doing from a soul perspective,
right,
from a human being evolution perspective, that somehow what we feel could be the wrong thing to follow.
Yeah. Well, what we feel like, so the intuitive pull, right, is what's true for you, doesn't feel anxious, doesn't feel fearful. And we often say, this doesn't make any sense, but I really feel like I should do this.
So talk about that for a second. So hence the name of this little podcast. How does intuition help us cut through the protective mechanism of the subconscious to get to source?
I think it has to get your intuition has to get street credit. I really think so. I mean, I've trusted my intuition so much, and it's never failed me, that I can implicitly trust it. I'm skeptical by nature. So I think you don't just throw caution to the wind, but you can remind yourself of all the times that you didn't listen to yourself and it didn't work out the way that you wanted. And the times that you did listen to yourself, even when it didn't make any sense. But this was right for me, even though Johnny, Jim, and Joe told me I was stupid to do it. It felt right for me in my bones. And even if it didn't work out, wow, I'm proud of myself that I did something that was right for me in my bones.
I haven't had these conversations in a long time with respect to intuition, because this little podcast has gone in a lot of different areas. So we're coming back to some stuff I remember we talked about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But, if we think about it as we are, and I think each person has a different way of tapping into their intuition. Some people are auditory, some people are kinesthetic, some people have things that they hear in their head, whatever. There's a lot of different ways. But the problem with intuition is that it comes from a place in the brain that doesn't have language. And so therefore it's so much almost like a whisper. It's hard to know what it is, but when you know what it is, then in your own way of identifying it, which may not be the way your friend identifies with it, but once you find that true source of information and can trust that, then I think intuition can be a really huge asset.
Yeah. The way I say is, you got to get, at first at least, you got to get quiet. You got to get alone. You put your hand over your heart and you pose the question. And then the answer that comes in that whisper or that feeling or that image. And another way you can kind of pull it out of yourself is you can say, the truth is, my wedding is tomorrow, but I do not want to marry the man. Holy shit. Wait
a minute. Did you listen to my... You're pulling from my TEDx talk, aren't you?
No. No. I didn't.
Oh,
I didn't
well,
hear
that's
that part.
exactly what happened. I mean, for me,
my gosh, that's crazy.
I didn't follow it either. I got married anyway.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of my ex-husband. My husband, my current husband, was married before, and we're both remarried. Came together, and he said his first marriage, on his wedding day, he knew he didn't want to marry her.
Yeah.
But everything was booked. The guests were arriving, and it was like he wished he'd never done it.
Oh, I remember. And again, your husband and I can probably sit down over a beer and talk about stories regarding that event. But I remember even from the day of the wedding, and again, wonderful person. I mean, there's nothing wrong. Loved this person. It was great individual, right? Obviously, for many, many reasons, just wasn't felt like I should be married to them. That's all. I
Yeah.
remember literally thinking as I was about ready to get to my spot in line to go and get married that I thought this is the wrong thing to do. And it felt, but I think that that's where courage sometimes has to be so strong because again, I had people who flew in from all over the country.
Yeah.
We had caterers. And at that moment to say, I'm going to be a Hollywood person and say, call the whole thing off would have been really, really tough.
Well, this is the thing about intuition. It's inconvenient.
It can be.
It can be really inconvenient. Wow, this is really inconvenient for me to know right now.
And I didn't plan that. That's not my day planner. That's not part of my calendar to have me to go do this, or I'm going to have to let go of this relationship. I tell this to managers all the time. I said, so you've got this person on your team that has been a bad performer for years. When did you first know that? And it's usually months and years ago. It's like, what was it that told you that? Well, probably my intuition did. It's like, why did you follow that?
Because it was inconvenient. It would have been a difficult conversation. I would have had
I don't want to do that.
Someone.
Hate conflict. Yeah, exactly. But then you pay for it down the road many, many times over. And I think that intuition, because of this whole conversation is reminding me, allows the full person to show up, all your superpowers to be there. And we started off this conversation with the Gallup poll around engagement. What would it be like if we had an organization, a team that really followed and trusted their intuition? What would engagement levels be like then?
So Holy high. Crap. I'm thinking of a boss I had once who asked me she said, what schedule do you prefer? And I said, well, when do you need me? And she said, no. It needs to work for you and it needs to work for me. Because if it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for me.
Right.
And I don't know if that's related, but it doesn't mean, the employee gets everything they want, but happy employees make effective employees and make, employees that are productive. And I can tell you if employees aren't happy, they are not as productive. So business owners should care.
It's funny that the timing of all this is just interesting because tomorrow's my birthday and we've got some people coming. And I'm going to, be thinking about it. And I was thinking about the people in my life right now. I get reflective on the date doesn't mean anything, but I think about the people that in my life. And so I was thinking about, the people that I love spending time with. Let me be me.
Yes.
Let me be me. And not only let me be me, let me explore me being me. Because I'm still trying to figure myself out, even at the age that I'm at. And my wife is that way. We got some close friends are that way. And my intuition gets to go and play and have this adventure. And the other people who are close to me go like, go knock yourself out. And we do that for each other. So I feel like intuition is such a key component to your point, finding source, right? Cutting through the brain, getting to the trauma that you're talking about, because you know that even though it's inconvenient, but it also allows you to kind of have all cylinders firing, not just two or three that are socially acceptable. We want all of them. We want the whole person, not just a kind of a clown version of you.
Right. Well, a socially acceptable version of you. Yes. And that is one of the biggest causes of our unhappiness. The me that is me, it cannot express itself, and right. And we feel like something's inherently wrong with us, that we're not lovable, that we're not likable. Social anxiety is a huge thing. But if we not all relationships will survive this shift. If we start surrounding ourselves with friends like yours and start not, we do it kindly, honestly, and directly, but we just don't settle anymore because the cost is too high. The cost of not being yourself and fitting in and wearing that social mask is depression, anxiety, overwhelm, stress.
Right. And the irony with our society right now is we're so focused on allowing people to be themselves that we put so many rules and about what is and what isn't, that we've actually created more disconnect than we have created connection. That's a whole nother subject.
So I love Claire, talking to you.
I could chat with you all afternoon, but tell us where we can find out more about you and your work, and give us your 30-second pitch on how do we get to connect with you?
Sure. You can connect with me on at claireuncapher.com. And I'm sure Dean will put that in the show notes because Uncapher is challenging.
Uncapher. That's how it is.
Right.
Uncapher.
That Uncapher. I'm also very active on Instagram. So if you want to hop on Instagram, you can DM me and we can connect there.
Well, Claire Uncapher, this has been the best part of my day so far. So thank you so much for bringing your energy and your insights and your joy into this conversation. I so appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You bet.
Thank you for listening to The Business of Intuition. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com.